When I was 8 years old, I cried because I thought the skybox on FREEZEEZY Peak in Banjo Kazooie was more beautiful than my tiny human mind could comprehend. Welcome to another episode of Skybox Appreciation. For some reason, all platformers seem to start with blue skies and green grass. Mario 64 starts with Bob-omb Battlefield, Spyro the Dragon starts with Stone Hill, Jak and Daxter starts with whatever that place was called, and Banjo Kazooie starts with Spiral Mountain. I never spent a lot of time in Spiral Mountain. You know, you're supposed to just sort of start and walk through it and immediately, go on into the game and never return because there's nothing there for you. And as a result of that, I never really spent a lot of time looking at the skybox. Wait! What's a skybox, you ask? Well, if you're not familiar, a skybox is something that represents the sky in a 3D game. But for our purposes, it basically just means the sky in a video game. Any sky. I don't discriminate. So because you only spend about 5 minutes there, I never really took the time to stop and look at the sky in Spiral Mountain in Banjo Kazooie. But like I said, it follows the tried and true 3D platformer formula of blue skies first, please don't scare me with a moon. Rule number 1 of 3D platformers. Not only is Spiral Mountain blue in this case, but the first proper level in Banjo Kazooie, MUMBO'S Mountain. What is it with mountains? MUMBO'S Mountain also has a blue sky and green grass. And I think a lot of us notice that when we play games like this, especially games that are set in fantasy worlds where you could have any number of environments at any given time, for some reason, game developers tend to put you in the grassy area with blue skies first. It's like perpetual summertime at the beginning of the game. Mario Kart does this. Xenoblade Chronicles does this. Sonic does this. Zelda. I'm sure there's a reason for that. We may get into it later. So what are we talking about with skyboxes on Spiral Mountain and MUMBO'S Mountain? Spiral Mountain, perfect crystal clear blue sky. MUMBO'S Mountain, almost perfect crystal clear blue sky. But would you look at those ugly f***ing clouds? Holy hell, those are blurry. Why are they so blurry? When I looked at these skyboxes for a little bit longer though, I realized something very interesting and unusual about them. Do you have any guesses what it is? I'll tell you in a minute, but when you hear it, you're going to be hitting yourself in the head. After MUMBO'S Mountain, the next level in the game is Treasure Trove Cove, and wouldn't you know it, the game will not let go its icy grip on our nostalgic memories of summertime. We will not get rid of this blue sky if it's the last thing we do. Treasure Trove Cove, however, is cool for 2 reasons. Number 1, the clouds are a little bit different. I'm a big appreciator of games that have multiple skyboxes that could just be the same one. So a lot of these blue sky with cloud skyboxes, you could have used them for all of them, nobody would have noticed, but they made subtle changes to it. So Treasure Trove Cove has that nice little cloud in the middle there. The other thing I really like about Treasure Trove Cove and how it relates to its skybox is it gives you a really nice opportunity to get extremely high up. It's a very vertically oriented level. All the way at the tip top in the most unremarkable and odd space in perhaps the entire game on top of the lighthouse puts you almost kissing the skybox itself. Now, something that Treasure Trove Cove has that the first 2 levels of this game did not have is, this is the answer to my riddle, a sun. Perhaps the most vital piece of creating a blue sky and a summertime atmosphere is the life-giving force that is the sun, and the first 2 levels of this game don't have a sun. Now, I find this so cool because Treasure Trove Cove feels like an outdoor level, but the first 2 of this game feel like weird little claustrophobic doll houses of levels. MUMBO'S Mountain doesn't have a sun. I don't have a sun. Stop calling me. Skyboxes have a wonderful ability to play with these sort of subtle things that you won't notice because they are, by definition, so far away and in the background from your regular playthrough. If you don't stop to look at them, you won't notice the ways that they're changing the feelings that a level gives you. Look again at the sky in Spiral Mountain and tell me that there isn't something a little bit uncanny about just how deeply blue and non-sunshined it is. I think that's just neat as all hell. I think that's just neat as all Perhaps sensing that they'd gone a little bit too overboard with the blue skies, the next level of the game removes every single skybox entirely. There is no semblance of sky in Clanker's Cavern, unless you count the bloody palate of a cybernetic shark, which I do not. Clanker's Cavern does introduce something interesting that will become a sort of a skybox motif in Banjo Kazooie, and that is the lack of a skybox. There's a couple of levels that use this to great effect. Clanker's Cavern, you don't really notice it because it's in an artificial environment, but it does give the space a sense of intimacy, which you notice even more so in the next level, BUBBLEGLOOP Swamp. This blows my mind when I think about this, because BUBBLEGLOOP Swamp is one of those places that, by the nature of it being a swamp, must be outdoors. But it does not feel like it's outdoors. No matter how many frog sound effects they put in, no matter how much swamp paraphernalia is scattered around, it doesn't feel outdoors. It feels like it's in a weird warehouse. And this skybox, or lack thereof, is the reason. The lack of sun in the first two levels and the lack of a skybox in this level entirely starts to give Banjo Kazooie a really interesting kind of almost like a theatrical play kind of feeling, as though all of these levels are little built dioramas that Banjo is going into, as opposed to real places across the world that he's visiting, you know? This isn't some level-based game where you're globe-trotting and traveling the world. These are spaces that seem to be sort of contained in tiny little ways inside of Grunty's castle. Almost feels like escape rooms. And maybe I would say that the way that the game utilizes skyboxes is part of the way that it develops its own identity and really separates itself from other 3D platformers of the era. Another thing that separates it from other platformers of the era is its ability to make me cry. I can't explain it. I don't know exactly what it is. But looking up at that odd sky, the pitch black pinpointed stars skies, the people shuttered in their houses beneath the completely uncaring, holiday-adorned skybox. I feel like that stupid kid in The Last Jedi who was a slave cleaning donkey dung off the ground, who looked up at the stars and was like, oh, something better is out there and I'm never gonna get it. That's what it feels like to me. But it also makes me happy and comfortable, but in a really sad way. FREEZEEZY Peak continues to show that Banjo Kazooie is perhaps the ultimate example of verticality in a 3D platformer, certainly from this era, because it affords you the ability to go so high and get so close to that skybox that looking up at it, you can almost forget that you exist and that you aren't simply one tiny speck in the skybox. The Banjo Kazooie FREEZEEZY Peak Skybox from Banjo Kazooie, a children's video game from 1999 or whatever. Have I gone too far? No, I haven't, because no, if I was going to make a Skybox Hall of Fame, FREEZEEZY Peak would be in it, no doubt. The next level would not be in it. It's a level called GOBI'S Valley. This level may also be called Gobi's Desert or Gobi Desert, possibly Gobi Valley, I can never remember. So many games from this era use actual photographs that are compressed and artifacted and plastered over the sky. Banjo Kazooie doesn't seem to have done that. It seems to have drawn these skyboxes in some sort of program with some sort of brush for the game. Part of the reason I feel like this is the case is because I did some work to try and look up and find out what pyramids these were, and I had no such luck whatsoever. This is a pleasant skybox, but it's really nothing special, so let's move on to another pleasant skybox that isn't really anything special. I feel like I might get a lot of hate for this one, Mad Monster Mansion. A lot of people have fond memories of the atmosphere in this level. I do too. The skybox ain't the reason. It's not a bad skybox by any means. It suits the theme, but it doesn't, when I engage with it, you know how I was talking about how, like, what was it? You know, oh, FREEZEEZY Peak is like, makes me feel like my life is unattainable and I'll never have satisfaction. This skybox simply just doesn't give me any of that. Maybe it's because I just don't like Halloween that much. Maybe it's because I just don't like ghosts and goblin ghouls. It's not resonating with me. It makes me feel very little. So we're going to move on from it to the next one. Rusty Bucket Bay changed my life when I played Banjo Kazooie about a week ago. The color is stunningly beautiful, but as you get further up, you know, like I said, every level in Banjo Kazooie has a pretty good sense of verticality, so you can get pretty high and you can see pretty far, and when you do that with this level, you see this. Unlike the other levels that, like I said, maybe feel a little bit more like a playset, Rusty Bucket Bay takes place on Earth and is connected to other things on Earth. Banjo is visiting Rusty Bucket Bay. Rusty Bucket Bay is not inside Gruntilda's castle. Rusty Bucket Bay has one huge difference from all the other levels in this game, and that is that there is a door, there is a gate connecting us to that skybox on the outside. Rusty Bucket Bay implies the existence of a wider world and shows you the door to get there. The back of the ship in Rusty Bucket Bay says the word England. Inside the ship in Rusty Bucket Bay are maps, there are sailors, there are people working here. This is a ship with people who came from somewhere to dock here. Banjo is visiting Rusty Bucket Bay. If you take nothing else from this video, I need you to understand that because of the skybox, we can deduce that Banjo the bear and Kazooie the bird are visiting Rusty Bucket Bay. GOBI'S Valley doesn't exist. Treasure Trove Cove doesn't exist. It drives me crazy that I finally realized why this level feels so odd, and it's precisely this. Banjo is visiting Rusty Bucket Bay. Have you ever thought about this theme Banjo Kazooie has? It has this obsession with decay and rot and garbage and suffering and sadness. The game has absent fathers and crying children and dolphins crying for help as they slowly drown. You abuse a camel, you force it from its homeland. People are constantly bickering and making fun of each other for being fat. And it all comes to a head in Rusty Bucket Bay. This level is literally the thing. You know how Mario games, it's like, this is the lava level. This one's in a forest. This is a snowland. Rusty Bucket Bay's theme is pollution and decay. And the last thing I'm trying to do is be one of those YouTubers who says, Banjo Kazooie has a dark side. It's a secretly dark game. That's the dumbest. Those videos are the dumbest I've ever seen in my life. I don't mean to say that there's a secret, intentional, dark thread through Banjo Kazooie. What I mean to say is, what the f? Anyway, sorry for the tangent. I'm not really talking about the skybox anymore, but it was in exploring the skybox that I sort of thought about all these things, and I wanted to tell you. Before we go on to the last couple of bits of this game, I want to take a moment to thank Patreon supporters Tin, Tenleb, and Inazuma Fool for requesting that I make this video. If you support me at the Egg Controller tier on Patreon like they do, you also can send me a message and request a video that I will then make. So thank you to both of them for getting me to make this. There's not, honestly, that much to say about the rest of the levels in the game, in my opinion. You've got Click Clock Wood, which is the final level, and that is a level broken up into 4 different versions. One for summer, one for spring, one for fall, and one for winter. This level, again, is an extremely vertical level, and it does give you the ability to get very up close and personal with some of the edge walls of these skyboxes, which include some very large and interesting tree walls. I do want to give a shout out to the fall skybox in this level, though, because I remember being a kid, and the fall skybox from this level would be on that short list of skyboxes I saw as a kid that made me pay attention to skyboxes as an adult. Yeah, this is a beautiful skybox. Again, let's take a moment to appreciate gradients. I'm a big fan of gradients in video games, skyboxes. I'm a big fan of gradients in real life. If you've ever seen that beautiful gradient of right before the sun rises, or the one that comes right after it sets, I mean, I could talk about those all day. And again, this fall gradient in Click Clock Wood, coupled with the music and just the general atmosphere, the sort of jolly atmosphere of the place, really sticks out in my mind as just like as some of the more beautiful orange colors I've ever seen. Everything in Banjo Kazooie culminates in the battle at the top of the tower with Grunty. This is one of the skyboxes that the people who requested I make this video specifically pointed out. I don't think it's that good of a skybox. I like it, don't get me wrong. Big, billowing, beautiful clouds. Lightning bolts, it's cool. It's always fun to freeze frame lightning bolts in games to see the way that they do it and the way that they draw them. But this would be, I would say, like an A or a B tier skybox, not an S tier sort of transcendent skybox, right? But aside from that final battle, there are a couple of sneaky skyboxes. One of them comes after you beat the game and you watch the credits. You get this nice, unique beach skybox as everyone's lounging on the beach after you've finally beaten Grunty. Everyone's chilling, and then a lady with big titties walks by so that you can look at her and be like, yeah. Again, Rusty Bucket Bay, lady with big titties, who's this game really for? And finally, there's one more little sneaky skybox that you may not remember unless you know this game extremely well. Do you have any idea what it is? Post your guesses down below in the comments. I will tell you at the end of the video, after the little like credits bumper, I'll show you what skybox that was, because I don't think you'll be able to guess it, because I didn't even realize it was a skybox when I saw it. can't stop thinking about Rusty Bucket Bay. If you need more Skybox appreciation in your life, I got a whole playlist of videos in this series. You can watch them and fall asleep to them. They're very good for that. Your Patreon support means the world to me. I appreciate it so much. You know what else I appreciate? I appreciate that in my free time, I make a lot of music. I use that music in all my videos. So today, I have only one more thing to say to you. Please enjoy the song. I'll see you next time.
I don't know exactly what I wanted to do with my time, and I did it. I don't know exactly what I want.
This is a window outside of the top of Grunty's tower right before the final boss fight. And if you go right up next to it, it looks flat as a pancake and it looks absolutely terrible.